China occupied Tibet in 1951. This changed India's Indo-Tibet border to Indo-China border overnight. Since then, India is facing Chinese music in all its avatars. While Indo-Tibetan border law has lost its nature of being the most peaceful and least guarded border in the whole world to the most tense ones, China has used its presence in Tibet to create all imaginable problems for India, be it claims an aggression on India's territory or using Tibet to shelter and promote terrorism and separatism in India. China's latest action in Galwan Valley and in adjoining parts of Ladakh has put Tibet once again into focus as the root cause of problems of India with China. In this series, we are going to discuss various aspects related to this issue with Mr. Vijay Kranti, who is a senior journalist and a keen Tibet and China watcher for over 4 decades now. He is also an author, a photographer, a TV presenter, an interviewer, and a radio presenter. Also, we have with us Mr. K. Siddhartha, who is an earth scientist and environmentalist, a mentor, a strategic thinker, and perception and knowledge management consultant. In this episode of the series, we are going to discuss in details the significance of Tibet.
We have Sri Vijay Kranti with us. Vijayji has done a lot of work on Tibet, and his name is almost synonymous to that of the Tibet. One of the few rare read of his patient on Tibetan region. We'll go on to begin by asking him a very simple question. Is there any place like Tibet in the world?
Surely, Tibet is one of the very well discussed countries. It is on the, it has been by traditionally on the northern borders of India, and along the entire Himalayas, those 4,000 kilometers, if you start from Ladakh and then go up to Arunachal, this entire length of India and Nepal, Bhutan, Sikkim, the entire border on the other side was Tibet always for 100 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years. So it was always Tibet on that border until China occupied it in 1951. So the moment China occupied Tibet, then suddenly the Indo-Tibetan border overnight changed into India-China border. So Tibet has been there because of its height, because it's the highest plateau on the earth. So people have been calling it as the roof of bird. And it's quite a huge country, and people have been knowing about it.
Sir, I'm just going to add certain things to it. I mean, physiographically and geologically and geographically, if you see it so, then there's a place called as Patagonia that lies on the east side of the Andes Mountains in South America. It's almost like that if you are blindfolded in Tibet and you're going to be taken to Patagonia, you won't be able to recognize whether you have been in Tibet or in Patagonia. The landscape is going to be so similar in most of the places there. You're going to be having yaks in those places. The people are going to look the same way by and large, except for certain regions where you're going to be having a red and black spot on the earth. That is one part that goes on to make it very, very similar. There's another aspect as well, sir. That is it's roof of the world, no doubt about it. So Patagonia is also going to be the roof of the world, and in a similar manner, you're going to find the northern portions of North American plateau, like Yucatan Plateau, having similar type of a feature to a large extent, similar. The third similarity is going to be associated with the type of lifestyle that the people are going to be having. It's a real tough place to stand and withstand its conditions. I wonder how is it that people must be surviving in that region, and that is one part that you will be able to explain it much better while talking about the geostrategic aspect there. There is so polyandry is something that is going to be practiced in Ladakh, in the western portion of Tibet, and it's in by and large in whole of Patagonia as well. although Patagonia is really thinly populated. Tibet has been, you know it better, it's a huge buffer zone. It's one of this massive buffer zone. Of course, China obliterated this buffer zone. And the most exceptional characteristic, if I can go to say, of Tibet is it's a no-fly zone. You cannot go on to fly over Tibet and then go to land on the other side in China. This is largely because for such a long distance, you don't going to be having airports, you don't going to be having any type of refueling facility, you don't going to be having any condition, any place which can go on to deal with such type of an emergency situation. So from that perspective, Tibet is really exceptional. It's really exceptional. But
Yes,
then,
yes.
but then the significance of Tibet happens to be much more than that.
Yeah.
How will you will go to perceive its significance? The significance of Tibet.
Yes, you know, to understand this whole, to discuss this subject, first, if we know visually exactly where is Tibet and what is its situation today vis-a-vis China and India, that will make it much easier. I will show you some, a couple of maps. You see, this is the location of Tibet on our northern borders, right from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh. The white portion which you see is Tibet, which was occupied by China. And now you see that till 1919, the map of this region of China, of Asia, which will show you what exactly the original China has been. And it was till 1919 that this was what you would see. The yellow portion was Tibet, and below it was India. And then on the north west was East Turkestan, and Tibet's northeast was southern Mongolia. On the east was China, and above China in the northeast was Manchuria. So this is how Asia was till 1919. But China became aggressive and expansionist. So in 1919, that days China first occupied the southern part of Mongolia, which China has branded as Inner Mongolia. And this is what happened to China at that time. In 1935, China occupied Manchuria. You know, we all are used to seeing Manchurian dishes, and we think they are Chinese. They are actually not Chinese. They are Manchurian dishes are Manchurian. It's because China occupied it, so Manchuria became a part of China, and that's why Manchurian dishes are popular as Chinese dishes. So that's a mistake we should understand when enjoy that food. And in 1946, when Mao Zedong was through his process of Long March, his communist revolution, in 1946, his Red Guards, they were in this region of Uyghur, East Turkestan, when they found a lot of resistance from local people. They did not cooperate with Mao, and he had his grudge. So in the last stages, he occupied East Turkestan. That was 1946. In 1946, this is how China looked. But in 1951, China occupied Tibet. And unfortunately, China could occupy despite the fact that by that time, India had become a free country. That was period when imperialism and was winding up from the face of earth. So many countries were becoming free. But in that period, Tibet became occupied by China. So this is exactly what you see today. That makes today's China. And that is why China is on our, if you see how area-wise, the way China has occupied these four countries, Manchuria, South Mongolia, East Turkestan, and Tibet, these four areas occupy more than 6 million square kilometers of today's China. And today's People's Republic of China, 64% of this region is made of these four countries which were occupied. Their total population is 29 plus 29.6 million. But interestingly, the total population of these four occupied countries within People's Republic of China is only 2.1%. And the share of resources, natural resources, whether it is gold, whether it is uranium, lithium, and oil, water, these two-thirds of resources of these countries, China owes two-thirds of its resources to these four countries. And just to add to this point, what Chinese have done, because they always say that there are 56 nationalities in People's Republic of China, and they claim that they give due respect to all other 55. But the reality is that the Han Chinese, who are the real Chinese, so their today population is more than 92%. Only these rest of 55 nationalities occupy only 8% of the population. They have adopted so many ways of killing them, converting them, occupying them, forcefully marriage, everything. So this is how you would see that today China, what China's shape is, and where does Tibet and occupied countries like East Turkestan, which they have named as Xinjiang, and those two others happen. So this will make you understand how Tibet has become Tibet has ceased to become India's neighbor, and China has become India's neighbor.
This is a wonderful evolutionary graph that we have seen it, sir. But talking about the significance of Tibet, I think Tibet, all in all, maybe at that point of time, our rulers, when India went on to become free, couldn't come to understand it. It is, you will also agree that it is the water tower of the world. It has the third biggest resources of water anywhere in the whole of the world, with a source of 10 rivers, rivers going into 10 different type of countries in that region. So that makes it very, very significant. I'm going to add another point here, sir. That is, Tibetan region is going to be equally significant for rare earth elements. And some of these rare earth elements, China has an absolute supremacy over them that is going to be found mostly in the same region, Tibetan region. And to process, these are the rare earth elements which are going to be used for the purpose of making the screens of the mobile and so on. Now, you will appreciate that is to process one of these screens and one type of microprocessor, it requires almost 1,200 liters of water. So that goes on to signify why exactly is it that the Chinese will be using this water tower. And Chinese, you can go on to appreciate the foresightedness of negative foresightedness of the Chinese. No one knows it better than you. That is it, the source of so many of these rivers. And Chinese have been going on dam making history on most of these rivers. We'll talk to you on that aspect sooner. But then it has enormous amount of a snow cover. All in all, it is a permafrost.
Yes.
All permanently frozen in this place. And that's the basic reason it's going to be called by the name of third pole as well. There's a recent aspect which the Chinese may go on to be using it in a negative sense. And that is significant. Maybe we are going to be losing sight of this fact. But understand it, Indian monsoons, particularly the tropical cyclones and tropical depressions, they have a deep relationship with Indian monsoons. And they originate because of some type of a pressure disturbance that goes on to take place over the Tibetan Plateau region. If any amount of a disturbance that goes on to take place over this Tibetan Plateau region, the monsoons are going to be disturbed. And Chinese, and it was in a conversation today itself that you gave this information, Chinese have gone for en masse killing of the forests in this region and extensive deforestation.
Yes.
So much so that they have altered the complete reflection balance from the sun. Now, with this type of a reflection balance that we're going to technically call it as an albedo balance, the whole region's heat resource and heat generating resource will go on to get altered, and this is going to be one way in which the Chinese will go on to using Tibet as a card for some type of terrorism, environmental terrorism that we can go to call it. And
yes, you are right.
Not only that, sir, it's also going to be that is they are going to be inserting a lot of pathogens in the rivers. A lot of
Wow.
bacteria in the rivers which going to be having their source in China, and they are the one who will finally come to India, and they are going to be affecting the riparian states to no end. And this is why the region goes on to become even more significant now than what it has been some time back here.
Thank you for watching this video and stay tuned for our upcoming episodes of this series to know what Chinese have been doing all along these years.